Once again, 'tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, back with you for a special Sunday edition. And on the weekends, we always welcome our guest superstar, the Countess, Lola Montez of Landsfeld. Good day, Countess.
Good day. Good day, Your Majesty, and I hope you're weathering well.
Quite well. It's a little smoky outside, but we're doing just fine.
Oh,
This is episode number 129. Today is August 30th, 2020. It is our 164th day under COVID-19 restrictions. Countess, what do you have for us today?
oh, well, we have several surprises, and thank you all for tuning in today. And I would suggest if you have a comment or questions, please below at the comment section, like us and subscribe. That way you can know every time the Emperor has a show and myself. And we want to express our gratitude for all the tips.
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Yes.
indeed. And if you would like to leave a tip, here's the information right here. You can do a monthly subscription for any amount via Patreon or make a one-time donation via PayPal. It certainly helps us out a lot.
Indeed. Well, we're going to talk about some of the money makers here in San Francisco today. I have some surprises with Madame Toy. Now, but before we get to that, you know, the drought has gotten so bad in California that they're praying for Jesus to turn the wine into water. Now, why did the gold prospector get kicked out of the saloon?
Why is that?
It's illegal to sell alcohol to a minor. What do you get when you throw a piano down a mine shaft?
What?
A flat minor. What did the gold miner bake for dessert?
What would that be?
Carrot cake. What's another name for fake gold, Your Majesty?
What would that be?
A shamrock. What kind of dogs do gold panners like the most?
What would that be?
Golden retrievers, of course. And what state do miners avoid?
What's that?
Oregon. Yes. Well, you know, I've been accused of being a gold digger, but you don't buy a pickaxe and a mining helmet on a whim. Did you hear about the dumb blonde that went digging for gold in the toilet?
Why, no.
The miner gave her the shaft and she was really digging her own business. Well, which fairy tale is worth the most?
What would that be?
Goldilocks. Moving on, I want to tell you about one of the most notorious first Chinese madams that came to San Francisco. And that would be Madame Toy. I will consult my notes here. Who was the notorious and famous first madam of San Francisco's Chinatown? Why, that would be Toy. There are still stories and rumors surrounding her mysterious life. And who was she? Did you know her, Your Majesty?
No, we never crossed paths.
Well, from much research and findings, we do know that she was born in May of 1829 in Canton, Guangdong, Qing, China. Now, in the 1850s, when the gold rush started in San Francisco, we have to remember what was happening in China at the same time. There were wars between the tongues, and the rice famine and jobs were difficult to find.
Mm-hmm.
You know all about the rice, do you not, Your Majesty?
Don't get me started.
Well, we shall talk about other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now then, it was difficult to find work in China at that time. And so the custom was in Canton that the head of the household would go to find work wherever it was available, perhaps in the next village and so the nearest province. So when the word was spread around the world of the gold rush in San Francisco, many were eager to seek out their fortune here for better work.
Mm-hmm.
And it was here in the 1850s that the first Chinese arrived in what they called the Golden Mountain.
Mm.
Now, San Francisco is the oldest Chinatown in North America, and it's still here. Yes. Now, the Chinese did not want nor plan to stay in San Francisco. This was a remote, far away, barbaric, and uncivilized place. But the first arrivals were about 700 men. They arrived and wanted to make some money and go back home to China. It was a bachelor community, and it was formed here in San Francisco. Each man had left his wife and the family back home. They didn't want to bring them here. And it was very difficult and a lonely life, lacking the basic needs, and they were facing tremendous racism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in times of war and hardship, people are driven to desperate means to survive. And in China, an option faced by some was to sell a child into prostitution.
Oh dear.
Now, if you think that's so unusual, it still goes on today in different places in the world where people are in dire and desperate situations. For example, if you have 10 children and all of you are starving to death and you're going to die, perhaps one child being sacrificed and sold as a slave would allow everyone else to live. Today, for example, in Afghanistan, boys as young as 7 or 8 years old are sold into the sex trade as slaves. And the practice of bachi-bazi in Afghanistan, there's a wonderful documentary, if you've never seen it, called The Dancing Boys of Afghanistan, done in 2010. And it was produced by Jamie Doran and directed by Afghani journalist Najibullah Qurazi.
That's a mouthful.
Yes, it is indeed. But it's a well worth documentary to see and opening the eyes. Now, the bachi-bazi boys are taught to dance, wear makeup, and dress like girls, and auctioned off to the highest bidders at the end of the evening for sex. Now, getting back to our situation in San Francisco. At the same time of the gold rush, families in China were facing that similar situation. And so the sex trade arrived to San Francisco and would last for 28 years.
Oh my.
And that was up until the Red Light Abatement Act was passed of 1918. And later we can talk about other figures that were here to change that in San Francisco. We have to remember there was no child protective services. There were no child welfare organizations other than the charities of some of the churches. So later on, a young lady who was about 23, she was known as the White Devil to the Fassbinders and the pimps in Chinatown, was Donaldina Cameron.
Yes.
Now, she was also known as Lomo, which means little mother. And she was absolutely appalled when she got to San Francisco. She thought when she got here, she was going to be teaching children Bible verses and how to sew. Little did she know, they were giving refuge to a lot of the children that were sold into prostitution. And that's a whole other story.
Oh, yes,
so
that's a long one.
yes, There's a book that came out most recently called The White Devil's Daughter, and it's a good read. Have you read that, Your Majesty?
We have not, unfortunately, but we intend to.
Well, there's a lot of ignorance and misconceptions regarding other races. Now, especially when it comes to sex, and all of you out there watching this, I don't mean to bend your ears too much about it, but you know, people are as stupid as a post sometimes when it comes to sex. So many Anglo men had never seen an Asian woman, let alone a naked one. So from a business standpoint, this was an opportunity to capitalize on the issue. So, what happened? Ah Toy would arrive here as a sex slave herself, and her pimp set up a tent as a peep show, and there was a slit in the tent, and Ah Toy was put in the tent, and for 1 ounce of gold, which was at the time worth $16, one could gaze upon her countenance as she disrobed. I'm telling you, the men lined up all the way from the tent down to the waterfront and had to be patrolled at gunpoint to keep them from getting overly excited. Ah Toy quickly made a fortune. She not only made enough to buy her own freedom, but to open up not one, but 2 high-end brothels in San Francisco's Chinatown. Now, within 4 years' time, she had 3,000 to 4,000 boys and girls working for her in the brothels and sporting houses, all the way up to Stockton and Sacramento on the waterways for the miners' business. Now, to give you an idea, too, the difference, we had talked earlier in some of our other episodes about some of the prostitution that was going on during the Barbary Coast and how rough it was with the crib system and slave system. But when you opened up a sporting house, the whole game changed. Suddenly the sex workers are more protected. They're in a shelter with somebody overseeing the front door. The standards were higher. And let's say some feller just walks in off the street. Well, let's say you were not so clean, you know. They could refuse you at the door and say, get out of here, you riffraff. Come back when you've taken a bath. So it was a different caliber, let's say. And if you were a sex worker of the time, it was much better to work in a house. Also, you got paid better. It was cleaner conditions. There was more privacy for the clientele, that sort of thing. Well, now, Ah Toy quickly made her fortune. Not only did she make enough, as I said, to buy her own freedom, but to open up the other brothels. Now, one miner wrote in his diary, according to the writer Joanne Levy, he wrote in his diary describing Ah Toy as the handsomest woman he ever laid eyes on. We know from history that Ah Toy was strong-willed and determined. She did not hesitate to go to the San Francisco Recorder's Office to file grievances in court. For example, one client thought he would be shrewd and tried to fool Ah Toy by giving her brass shavings instead of the gold. Well, she found him out and she took him to court. The racism of the time was such that an Asian could not speak against an Anglo man, and her case was dismissed, but it went on the records. Now, there's a lot of contradictions and mystery regarding what became of Ah Toy, and by some accounts, you know, people claim there are certain pictures of her, but to my knowledge and my research, the only credited image of her is a sketch that was done, indeed. Now, what became of her, we do not know. There's a lot that speculate on that. In 1857, for example, there's a story that she returned to China as a wealthy woman. Other accounts state she went to Santa Clara County and retired, dying in 1928. And if that's the case, that would make her 3 months short of her 99th birthday.
My.
The many pictures used to depict Madame Ah Toy vary, and this historical uh, historically, we cannot always believe them that they're accurate, except that sketch that I told you about, done of her. Now, none have been proven. So we have yet to know, and as you well know, as I do, because of the fire of 1906, with records burning, and also the discrimination that faced many in the Chinese community, the records are not always accurate, nor are the pictures. You know, a lot of folks, especially the Anglo community, think that all Chinese look alike. Well, there are lots of theories about what happened to Madame Auteuil. She became powerful and was a force in San Francisco's Chinatown, which was male-dominated by the Tongs. Now, my theory, and from what I've read, is I propose that perhaps she became so powerful that she was assassinated and disappeared, which was typical of the time.
Oh, yes.
We will never be certain of the true story of Madame Auteuil, but the movies and the books written portray the mystery and the impact she made on San Francisco's Chinatown and the history of all of our city, a city that we love so dearly, and we're struggling right now once again with the COVID-19, you know. And of all the places, Chinatown has this mystery. I mean, we just lost someone was it last week or 2 weeks ago, from Forbidden City.
Oh, yes,
What
yes.
was her name, do you recall?
It does not come to the tip of my tongue at the moment.
But that's a part of our history in
We'll
San
put it up here.
Francisco.
We'll
Yes.
put it up here.
But there's a lot of different stories, you know, all the way from Samwo's restaurant to the early days. And one of these days we'll talk more about some of the other characters of Chinatown, such as Little Pete. Now that one right there is another story indeed. But I think with all this serious talk, we should have some entertainment.
Oh, absolutely.
Something uplifting, perhaps.
That was a fascinating story, by the way, Countess.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I hope all of you like it. And read more about it. As I find a subject, I like to go and research. And even today, as we talked about the Afghanis and that whole thing going on there, watch the documentary if you get a chance. And also you can read more about that sort of thing. How everyone right now in Pakistan and with the Taliban and everything, they've gotten very conservative and fundamentalist in Islam. And that's true in the United States with Christian philosophies and such, because we go from being very, very liberal to suddenly being very conservative. And this is something we see repeated in history.
Indeed.
Throughout.
Indeed.
And this is another example in Chinatown. Are you ready for some entertainment?
Always ready for some entertainment, Countess.
Well, we'll have to conjure something.
Oh, really?
And I think today's guest, I'm thinking we should hear an uplifting song. Our guest today has been terrorizing the stage for years and years, and she has had so much plastic surgery done that when she dies, she's donating her body to Tupperware. The Queen owns a dog and no legs. It has no legs, you know, and she named it Cigarette. So every time she takes it out for a drag. My friends, I present to you straight from the Horny Bull Bareback Bar in Killeen, Texas, the ever not so very talented and hopefully in key Reina Terror, but we're going to have to conjure her.
Oh, boy.
I got it.
Oh.
There you go. Did I scare you, Your
Yes,
Majesty?
yes.
Here we go. We will call ourselves Iggity Piggity Bumblebee. I will call Reina Terror for me. When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I'm on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I'm on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I'm on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I'm on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
Oh, that was so entertaining.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Raina Terror. Well, perhaps if you've ever had the opportunity, you too can go to Killeen, Texas and see the Horny Bull Bareback Bar. Have you ever been there, Your Majesty?
No, we've never visited the Republic of Texas.
Well, you know, they tried to be their own country.
As did California.
Indeed. Well, that's what I have today.
How wonderful. So I suppose that wraps it up for this edition. Until we see you again, stay safe, stay inside, and therefore, stay healthy. If you do go outside, please wear a mask. Don't take unproven cures. Be kind to one another. Here's more information about what the Countess and I do. And there's a lot of good information on those websites, so check that out. Until we see you again, a gracious good day.
Au revoir.